Today we're going to be talking about if you should walk on to a college. Now first we're going to explain what walking on actually is, and there's two types of walk-on players, and then we're going to get into if you should do it or not, and some other options if maybe you don't want to walk on based on the information we give you. So the first type of walk-on is just a regular walk-on. You're just a regular student and you want to try out for the football team essentially. So all you would do every single year, they have generally two tryout dates. They have one in the fall or right before the fall semester, and then one in the spring. Every team is a little bit different, but what you would do is you would go to that tryout. If you perform really well, the team will kind of invite you to be on the team, I guess you could say. And it's like any regular football tryout, if you will. They're going to put you through combine stuff, drills, competition periods, some conditioning. And it's honestly actually very easy to stand out at those tryouts because you'll get a lot of people that have never played football before and maybe just want to be on the team, but they maybe don't have the skills that you have. So if you have the skills, it's easy to stand out. Now, the second type of walk-on is something called a preferred walk-on. So preferred walk-on is something you will see a lot of high school recruits get. They will get a preferred walk-on offer, if you will, and it's essentially an invite to fall camp. So you're on the team, but you're paying full tuition. Usually it's for players who have the skills, but the school doesn't have, I guess you could say, scholarship money to give them. So let's say you're entering your senior year, you're a D1 caliber player, but maybe you got injured, you don't have a ton of film. A school might say, hey, we don't have any money to give you, but we do have a walk-on. So if you can afford the tuition, you're going to be essentially on the team. Your spot is guaranteed, you are on the team, but you're just paying full tuition and not a scholarship player. Now also, fellas, if you would like to gain weight this off season, check out that very first link in the description below where you can get a great protein powder to supplement in between meals. One of the best things you could do for weight gain is try to consume 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight that you have. That's a great way to put on lean muscle mass and have a healthy weight gain. So if you're 170, try to consume 170 grams of protein a day. And a protein powder is a great way to help with that. So if you guys would like a discount on our AG Labs whey protein powder, we have 4 great flavors. It's some of the best tasting protein I have ever had. This is our cinnamon snickerdoodle flavor, but check out that very first link in the description below. Use the promo code FIRST25, FIRST25 at checkout, and you get 25% off any one of our protein products. Now, when it comes to walking on, I think the biggest hurdle for most players is probably the financial aspect of things. I'm not a fan of telling players to hey, go jump into a 4-year school, take on a bunch of student loan debt just so you could play football. I think there are other options. I think there are cheaper options for you, but if you have the financial means to walk on, I think it's a great idea. But you got to be realistic with your skill level. If you're new to football, let's say maybe you didn't start playing high school football till your senior year, junior year in high school, you're still relatively new. So maybe you're not ready to go walk on at a D1 program or even a D2 program. Maybe you need to develop, right? And I recommend that if you're new to football. Maybe you've been playing football for a long time, you feel like you have the skills, maybe you battled some injuries, then walking on might be a good option. Now, there are 2 other options other than walking on after high school that I would say are good. Now, the first one is what I would recommend, but again, there's a financial aspect to this. You can earn a scholarship at these types of schools, but they're called prep schools or prep academies. So essentially, it's an extra year after your 4 years of high school, like IMG Academy, for example. And then there's some other ones more popular on the East Coast than where I live on the West Coast, but it's essentially where you play football on their prep team. It's a full year. You could get recruited. Colleges can recruit you. It's an extra year to develop, because I'll tell you this right now, you guys, a lot of people will reclassify their 8th grade year going into their freshman year for developmental purposes. You don't really see that development until you're a senior or until that year after high school. I know that's when I developed the most, was my first year out of high school. So a lot of guys will do that. They develop, they get an extra year of experience, and they get recruited to a bigger school. The benefit of that over something called JUCO, which is junior college football or community college football, is that you don't lose any NCAA eligibility. So you only have 4 years of eligibility. Obviously, you can gray shirt, which is what some of you'll do at a JUCO, and I'll explain that in a second. You could red shirt. So let's say you're a freshman in college, you red shirt. That means you still have 4 more years of playtime, but you're still taking a regular amount of classes or regular amount of courses. So that 5th year, you hear all the time about 5th year seniors. That 5th year, you won't be taking any classes maybe, but you'll still be playing football. That's like what Jalen Hurts did when he went to Oklahoma from Alabama. He already had his degree, but he was just playing football because he redshirted. Now, when you do a prep school, you don't have to worry about that because you haven't entered. Your clock hasn't started yet at the collegiate level. But when you go to a JUCO, your clock has started as soon as you take your first snap. So you can gray shirt, which means you take less classes and you're still on the football team, but you're not allowed to play. If you play 1 snap, I believe your gray shirt is done. You could redshirt at a JUCO, which again will give you extra eligibility, and a lot of people do that. Every school is maybe a little bit different with if they prefer that or don't prefer that, and some schools may have a lot of athletes, so it might be a good idea to do that. You can figure that out when you get there. But playing JUCO ball honestly isn't a bad option if you don't have the financial means to pay for a prep school or a 4-year school, because JUCO is pretty much damn near free, to be honest with you. I know in California it's pretty close to free. I think it maybe is like $1,000 for the whole year or something like that. So that's an option. You play at a JUCO, which is only 2 years. You earn your associate's degree, but you can still get recruited out of that JUCO school. And a lot of D1 schools will recruit athletes from JUCOs to play right away. They don't recruit them to develop them for 2 years, because 2 years isn't enough time. They're hoping you're already developed. They recruit you, and then you go right into a D1 program to play. So those are your options. That's kind of what I recommend, at least from the walk-on perspective. It has a lot to do with financials, but really what your goals are as a player. Now, what I do want to tell you about being a walk-on, you guys, is that it's not an easy life. A lot of people think like, oh, if I walk on and make the team, then, you know, like I'm a part of the team, I'm on the team. Like, yeah, you're on the team, but you're not on the team, because you got to understand, like, most of the role players, most of the starters, they're on scholarship. Not saying you can't earn a scholarship as a walk-on. A lot of people do. You hear those stories all the time. It's definitely possible to have success at the collegiate level as a walk-on. You hear all the stories like Baker Mayfield, obviously, is a guy who's playing very, very high level football right now, getting paid a boatload of money, and he was a walk-on to start out. But you're almost separate from the team in a sense, because think about everything that like a college athlete goes through that they have paid for because of their full ride scholarship. They have, you know, books paid for, meals paid for, housing paid for. You have to pay for all of those things. So when when like the whole team goes to eat, you're having to pay for your meals. Those guys are getting all their meals for free. So it's just like, again, that's another example of just, it's not an easy life. But if you could stick it out, you could tough it out, it's definitely possible. But just know that going in, that it's not an easy road. It's not what the media makes it all out to be, like, oh, he's a walk-on and then he had all this success. It's not usually the case, you guys. It's a very tough battle. You have to earn everything that you got. There's absolutely zero favoritism thrown your way. But if you can weather the storm, I think walking on is a viable option.